We can walk. It's like right around here.
Oh, yeah, fine, whatever.
I don't think
Like
there's a
I,
warp for it.
like I want to walk, Rob. Who walks
It's
in
Disney.
Disney?
You can walk.
I can warp.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Minecraft Disney Top 5, except we're changing the name today to the Minecraft Disney Top 3 because we're going to be covering the top 3. We're going to give it a try, see how it goes. Christine is once again joining me. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
How's
Hi.
life? How's life? That's the satellite delay. Christine's tuning in from Europe. We're bouncing through the satellites. So today we're going to be doing our top 3 animatronics at Walt Disney World. This is a hard one to put together because Disney World, birth of the animatronics, tons of animatronics, or I guess Disneyland, I guess if you want to be technical, but there's so much to pick from. And so let's just jump right in and take a look at your number 3 animatronic in Walt Disney World, which is right here in Hollywood Studios.
It is.
Okay, so here we are at Toy Story Midway Mania. I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, so my number 3 is Mr. Potato Head in the queue of Toy Story Midway Mania. And the reason he's my number 3 is probably obviously a lot of people have been on this ride, but he's incredibly entertaining while you're waiting, and sometimes this ride can have a very long line. So he's great. He cracks a lot of jokes, and his eyes kind of move around, his arms move around. Like, he just looks very realistic. Does hilarious things like drops his ear and, all these kind of like weird little things I guess you wouldn't think of like animatronics doing, but I feel like he's much more interactive, I think, than some of the older stuff, which just goes to show, how far they've come with this kind of stuff. And I know we mentioned this in a video in the past when we were talking about our favorite cues, where I said that oftentimes when people think that he spazzes out, like they think like he's broken because he keeps repeating a line or something, I have been told that that's actually just a cast member who is just playing around with the people who are waiting in line and who's literally just hitting like the same, voice or line over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So it's really just somebody trying to mess with you, just so you guys know. You don't have to worry he doesn't break down.
I also love that he's a Q animatronic. Like, and I come to think of it, one of the very few. I think the only one I could think of other than him is Buzz Lightyear, right? In Space Ranger Spin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's sort of an added value there of, he keeps you entertained while you're waiting in line, which is cool that they put like such an advanced animatronic for that purpose, as opposed to like you'd think this would be the centerpiece of an actual attraction. And I think in some ways this kind of is like a big highlight of the attraction, even though it's not actually getting onto the ride yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because it takes you a little while before you see him. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to kind of go through quite a bit of the queue, and then you turn that like little corner, and then it's like, whoa, there's Potato Head, and he's moving, and he's talking to me, and I think it's very cool. And that's the part of the queue where everybody slows down. Like,
yeah.
When there's like that huge space in front of like, and you're like, come on, guys, move along. It's because everybody is standing there just watching Mr. Potato Head.
And they got to get their selfies in.
Yeah,
Potato
exactly.
Head selfies. Hashtag Potato Head. Okay, let's move on to my number 3, which I am actually right about to change right this very second, right now.
What?
Christine doesn't even know.
This is unprecedented.
Okay, so here we are at Tomorrowland. My number 3, I actually just started a very in-depth discussion with Christine over whether or not my number 3 actually counts as a number 3, and I think we're going to move it onto the actual show here. And my number 3 pick for my favorite animatronic is Push, the moving, walking garbage can that I don't think is actually in service anymore. I think they've retired Push, but the big question is Push an animatronic? And I don't think there's anything in the definition of an animatronic that really disqualifies Push as one.
Wait, did you look up the official definition of an animatronic?
Well, like, I maybe thought of it in my head.
Okay,
maybe I'll look it up.
I'm gonna
pull it up.
You hold that thought right now.
Here's my argument. Right, audio animatronic is a portmanteau of audio, animated, electronics. Right, so Push moves around. He is animated. He is definitely electronic in nature, and audio comes out of it and is in sync with its movements, and it makes it a character. So I don't think there's anything about it that disqualifies it as an animatronic.
Okay, so here's the definition.
Okay.
Which actually I think is in your favor. Animatronics refer to the use of robotic devices to emulate a human or an animal or bring lifelike characteristics to an otherwise inanimate object. So under that definition, you are correct.
Boom goes the dynamite. I'm right. Number 2. I don't even have to go change Wikipedia. All right, Push is my number 3 favorite audio animatronic because 1, it's an audio animatronic, and that means I'm right. 2, super funny character. I think there's so much fun in not only interacting with Push, who would bounce around here in Tomorrowland, but also there's like that mini game of finding its handler who's controlling it, who's the person like dressed a little too much like a dad at Disney with like their hand in their, messenger bag and a little thing up into their like mouth, which is the microphone. I think that's always fun too, just sort of breaking the magic a little bit. But I just think it's one of those things where Push was not something you wouldn't be like, oh, go meet by the entrance to Tomorrowland at 3 p.m. to see Push. Like, Push was just something you came across, and it added to that level of magic that the Disney parks has where, these unexpected things pop up and you get to be amused and entertained by them. And it's just so fitting for the land. You look at Hollywood Studios, which has the street performers, which is sort of like that themed version of that for that park. And Tomorrowland has its own theme, which is, a robot. But not a robot, an audio animatronic.
Right. So fun fact, which I just read on Wikipedia, that there was actually a social media campaign that was #SavePush, but they still retired him on February 10th of this year.
Oh.
But have you ever run into West Palm outside of Animal Kingdom?
No.
It's a giant palm tree that walks around and talks, and it's the same sort of thing. He kind of scoots around. He's one of the palm trees. It's outside he's right by the entrance. I believe it's before you actually go into the park.
I don't know. I feel Push had an attitude about it that I think is irreplaceable.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying West Palm is kind of what is left, I think, of that sort of idea.
And if you're interested, I vaguely remember when I read about it that the reason Push was retired wasn't anything regarding Push itself, more than like a contract lapsing with the company that did Push and they created Push. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe one day in the future we'll see some version of it, but I think Push was just great because it was also just, I don't know, nobody goes to Disney for Push. It's just like the perfect supplement to a trip to the Magic Kingdom. It's just
Absolutely.
A little side
and especially for people who didn't know that it existed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who knew and would seek Push out, but it was more fun to watch people who had never been to Disney before get frightened by a talking garbage can,
If you're ever bored, hop on YouTube and just look up Push videos because they're great. And now Push exists, and more importantly, it's an audio animatronic, and I'm right, which is the most important thing everybody knows now. Okay. So let's move on to your number 2, which is here in the Magic Kingdom, but over on the other side. So here we are at your number 2, the Pirates of the Caribbean. Clearly, we're talking about which one is it? It's the dunking mayor, right? The mayor being drowned?
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm actually referring to the newer Jack Sparrow edition, which I think sometimes gets a little bit of flack. I think there's people who didn't want, certain changes to the ride, and I get it, There's nostalgia, but I like the idea of adding in something new. I think the Jack Sparrow animatronics, plural, I should say, because he pops up in a few different scenes.
Yeah.
Are really well done. They look spot on. Obviously, they sound spot on because Johnny Depp himself did the voice. Yes.
Cool.
So yeah, there's actually, if you look up, if you search when they premiered the new animatronic, there are actually pictures of him in the ride, next to it.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool thing. But yes, that is actual Johnny Depp's voice. Especially at the end. Obviously, when you see him throughout the ride in the beginning, he's kind of just popping up in different scenes because he's hiding out. I love the one where he pops up from the barrel.
Hop on, quick, Christine, hop on. Hurry up.
Oh, no.
Right click.
Wait, I'm trying.
You just kicked me off the ride. Right click.
I am. I'm right clicking.
You're trying to right click on mine. Why are you trying to get in mine cart? There you go. There you go.
There we
All
go.
right. Whew.
Good.
Just in time. All right. Continue. Sorry.
That was scary.
Sorry.
So.
That's how accidents happen.
So yeah. So the first few scenes, he doesn't say anything. He just pops up here and there because he's trying to hide. Obviously, the same one of my favorite ones is him actually popping up in the barrel, and you just kind of see his eyes go left and right, and he's kind of making sure nobody's looking for him, and kind of pops back down. It's really fun and it can kind of be missed if you're not looking for where exactly he is. And then, I think there's another point where he pops up, and then there's the very end where they put him in place of what used to be that skeleton that was covered in all the gold so it's just him sitting there with all the gold and the crown on his head, and he's singing A Pirate's Life for Me, which is fantastic. And I mean, if you really listen, that is Johnny Depp. And it's just so lifelike, and yes, I can see it's a little bit jarring because the old animatronics obviously aren't that caliber. But
hold on, 1 second. The cannon blasts are amazingly loud. Hold on.
Which was one of my favorite noises. Remember?
Yeah.
And I mean,
there he is.
It's definitely a little bit jarring in comparison because he's much more fluid movement and all of that. But I just think it's really cool, and it really looks like Johnny Depp is just sitting there in this chair at the end of the ride. And I really love it. It's a great tie-in to the movie, and I don't think it's overdone in any way.
Exactly. You actually just touched upon what I really like about it, which is that I think it's a very subtle way to work the movies into the attraction, which, let's be honest, it was going to happen anyway. It was a hugely successful trilogy. They were going to do it. So rather than revamp the whole thing and make it based on the movie or something, it was just like it was almost like an homage by just peppering him in throughout the ride in very subtle ways. And, I think to an extent, an argument for just the way he looks more fluid and more updated than the rest of them. That's a great way to, I think, highlight him a little bit, is because he sort of stands out. And I'm sure, obviously it's unintentional. It's not like they planned to make him look, way better as an animatronic than the others, but I think it does a good job of it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Oh, you're gone.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're there. The cars between us are gone.
I see you, and I see Jack Sparrow.
There's Jack.
And
that's
actually,
what people...
no longer a trilogy, Rob. Don't forget that.
Oh, right. They're working on a fifth too, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Oof.
I know. Now we're pushing it a little too far. But anyway.
Yeah. That's a good number too. I agree with that one. And this, I think, would go for one of my top, refurbishments, just in terms of keeping to the original without changing too much, but throwing in what needed to be put in there.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 2 is over in Tomorrowland, and it's at the Carousel of Progress, one of my favorite attractions at Disney World. And it is specifically the animatronic of, it was between the dog or the grandma and the grandma one. And I have it here on the list as Cop VR Granny because she's awesome. She's the grandma in the final scene who's playing the virtual reality space sim shooter with her grandson. And I guess she's my favorite, less for the actual animatronic, right? I mean, it was pretty simple. The animatronic's just sort of sitting there. But I just like her as a character. I like that she's playing this VR game. She's not afraid to be progressive with her video game playing. Progressive at the time, I guess, which was the 90s. And also that I like that she destroys her grandson's score in that game.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
She just wrecks him. And I just feel like, I don't know, it was that whole scene is something that has become more and more memorable to me, and I think a big part of it is because it's starting to become so dated, yet I can recognize the time where those massive giant televisions that were still tube TVs were a thing, and really bad 1990s VR was a thing, and that whole scene, I think, is what I feel, at least with that scene, and especially, with those characters, is what everyone was supposed to feel about all of, Carousel of Progress, right? When that came out in the 60s, people who had lived through all of those eras were on that attraction, and they could look back to all those times. We can't really look back to the 60s or the turn of the century. So, like, I think for us, that final scene is the one that sort of sums up the whole, spirit of the ride.
Right, which is kind of funny because back then it was the future. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of funny that their future is now how we're relating to how they felt about their past.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But to bring it back to the grandma, I just like that in an almost not an ironic way, but just it's so cheesy that I enjoy it. It loops back around to me genuinely enjoying it again. And she's just playing this stupid video game that by today's standard looks so bad and old. And she's not afraid to she's not, you know what it is? She's not afraid to throw the game for her grandson just to make that kid feel better. She knows that if she just wrecks him and just completely destroys his score, he's going to become a better man for it down the line.
That's an interesting way.
She's helping him grow up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she's my number 2 audio animatronic. I'm really picking them weird this week. Let's jump to your number 1, which for once is in the animal kingdom. So here we are in the animal kingdom outside of dinosaur. I feel like nobody has to guess at what your favorite animatronic is here, but take it away anyway.
All the dinosaurs.
All the dinosaurs.
Every single one. Well, I mean, yes, when I put this on my list, it was kind of encompassing all the dinosaurs. Obviously, I don't know if I say favorite or scariest thing that I've ever encountered in my life is the Carnotaurus, which is the one that's coming after you in the ride, the really, really huge one. But overall, I think all of the animatronics in this are fantastic because it really does make you feel like you're riding by actual dinosaurs. The other one that sticks out to me is, there's that one dinosaur that's like eating the other one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what they are. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's literally throwing its head back and swallowing a tinier dinosaur, and that is terrifying. So I love it because the fact that it's so realistic that it does instill that fear in me as a full-grown adult. Mm-hmm. Goes to show how well they're done. But it's definitely, I mean, the Carnotaurus is definitely, icing on the cake. That's that big one that pops out at you at the very end. Well, it pops out at you twice, right? Don't you see like the huge version of it, the full version of it, where they take the picture, where I always look like I am being murdered. And then there's the very last, like his head comes out as you're,
it's like above you.
Yeah. And I think back to, before Dinosaur, I have experienced the Jurassic Park ride in that other park. And, they also had the animatronics, and back then that was really cool. But I feel like Disney just stepped it up with this. Yeah. It was like you just realized how much more realistic they could be. I mean, I love them and I hate them at the same time.
They are pretty, I would say up until the Yeti in A mode at Expedition Everest, which I think is a good honorable mention for this list. Like, This was the animatronic that scared me the most in terms. The first time I rode that ride, it gave me I genuinely screamed. I just screamed. It was an involuntary, like, my body just didn't control it, and a scream came out because the thing was so giant and came out of nowhere, and just scared me to death. Which was, like I said, only topped by the Yeti later. I think. It's a lot of fun.
And just to say, this is also a great example of how important audio is with an animatronic, because that roar might be one of the loudest things I've ever heard at Disney. Like, it is loud. It is deafening to the point that I have screamed at the top of my lungs and had the person next to me not hear me because the roar was so loud and deafening in their ears. So you can pretty much only hear yourself freaking out, which is kind of scary. But yeah, it's just a really good example of the combination of the actual robotics and the audio just being amazing.
Yeah, it's a good job. I was just hopping over you. So let's move on to my number one, which is an Epcot, and probably I would say the exact polar opposite of your number one, the loud screaming dinosaur. All right, here we are at Epcot in Future World at Spaceship Earth, where my number one animatronic in Disney World is. There are a lot of animatronics in this one. In fact, one of them's on my honorable mention list, but the one that takes the top spot for me, and I actually had to sit down and think about why I love this one so much, but it's the sleeping monk from the Middle Ages who's just like hunched over. And it's at the point where they were talking about how they had to hand transcribe books, things like the Bible. And so you see monks who toiled endlessly, and you just see this one hunched over, like sleep at the table. And as far as like the anima part of animatronic, the animation, all it does is like breathe up a little bit and then breathe down. And up and down. And that's it. That's all it does. Maybe make some light snoring sounds. I don't remember if I ever heard that. But it's the most subtle animatronic. And I think that's why I love it. I love it because, you know, I think a lazier company, all they would have had to do was make a wax figure and have it slumped over and just have it sitting there and like run some snoring loop or something. But they made it an animatronic that actually moves just to mimic the very subtle motions of sleeping, which, you know, most people are probably going to look over when they ride the ride because there's so much else going on at the time. So I just appreciate it because of what it means for Disney's sort of commitment to detail. I like it that the monk is sleeping, and who doesn't like sleep? Everybody loves sleep. So it just sort of, I don't know, it's the most, when I think of Spaceship Earth and specifically animatronics, I think that's one of the ones I think of immediately.
Yeah, I think that is the exact opposite.
Yes.
I like how you're like, I like the finer details of a monk sleeping. And I'm like, I like giant dinosaurs that terrify me.
And the part where the monk comes out from the ceiling and roars at the top of its lungs is scary, and that is why it's the scariest animatronic. And you know what? There's something scary about hand transcribing a book, so it's scary in its own way.
That is true.
All right, so there you have it, our top 3 animatronics. I mean, there are so many other great ones. For instance, on my list, it just beat out Timekeeper, who I think was a great one, just because of how much it looked like Robin Williams. And then I call this Timekeeper. I call this animatronic Bill Jobs Wozniak, and they just added it to Spaceship Earth, and it's supposed to be like just a mix of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Wozniak as the people who made the home computer. So, I mean, there are a lot of great ones out there. I don't know. What's on your list?
I really liked everything at the Hall of Presidents.
Name all of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it was just the idea of the Hall of Presidents. I like the idea of them constantly making new ones when a new president is sworn in and they get to be the voice. I just think that's a very cool tradition.
Spin-off series, Christine, right now, top 15 presidents from the Hall of Presidents. Go.
Oh, Lord. That's not.
Okay, top one.
Wow, that's getting into politics, Robin. I will not take that.
No, just purely on an animatronic standpoint.
From an animatronic standpoint? I think I kind of always liked the Bill Clinton.
Okay.
But anyway.
I feel like I like watching the ones that don't get speaking roles because their animatronic movement is limited to just like idle nods and stuff. And
yeah,
I just
they're
picture
probably, like, if they were real, like if AI suddenly like became, you know, cognizant, they would be like the most bitter ones.
Yeah, I would see that. See, no, I think maybe they're like the lazy ones, and they're just like, why did I sign up to be here right now? Like, I think in 100 years, when that attraction's still around and we have so many more presidents added to that stage and technology allows it, you're going to see, like, the forgettable presidents are going to be the ones pulling out their, like, iPhone and just sort of checking their Instagram while, you've got, I don't know, whoever the president is in 100 years talking.
As long as we don't have, like, a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, the lights turn off and then all the presidents get closer.
Oh my god, that just made me think of BioShock Infinite. See? It's scary.
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
scary idea. Let's not go there.
Wow. But there you have it. We want to know, what are your top 3 favorite animatronics at Walt Disney World? They don't have to be these 3, although they do have to be VR Granny. She has to be everybody's number 1. That's the rule now. That's the channel rule. let us know in the comments below. And if you have an idea for top 5 that you would like to see happen, let us know in the comments below as well. Christine, how can we see all of your other stuff on the internet? You have all these stuffs.
All the internet
All the stuffs. Where do we find them? What do I put into my browser? My Internet Explorer search tool.
Well, Internet Explorer, really, Rob? You can go to twogirlsoneoutfit.com to check out the fashion blog I run. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, I'm Big Bruin Evil. I've also seen that a lot of your followers have been following me on Instagram lately, so you can find me there at Ivy Winter. So follow that as well.
Awesome. I will try to remember to put that all in the description. And I will also put it in my Internet Explorer search bar, and I will search for those things. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at RobPlays and on YouTube right here where you are right now. Christine, I'd like to thank you for joining me again. I can't wait to do the next one. We got to come up with some crazy topics because I see we have things like rides on the list and snacks, but we got to get obtuse so that my picks start to seem more normal. Because I'm really picking weird stuff for normal things, and that's not good.
Like VR granny and carpets.
Favorite grandma in Disney World. How about that? Top 5 grandmas in Disney World. Top 5.
Okay.
Top 5. Top 5. Shoot, this is tough. This is a tough thing. How do we do this? I don't know how we do this show. This is tough.
Top 5 turnstiles, and I mean specific.
Ooh, like which one? Like left side, third from the right, turnstile. Exactly. Okay, I could do that one. That one might require an actual trip for a refresher, but we'll see. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you all next time for the next Disney Top 5. Bye, everybody.
Bye.